Hi everyone, my name is Willy and you are listening to Humans of Authenticity. Our guest today is Cie Armstead, founder of Owlservations LLC and Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Administrative Director at the American College of Surgeons. Cie is a very well-known figure in the diversity and inclusion space, and any time with Cie is a time well spent. Welcome to Humans of Authenticity, Cie.
Thank you. I'm grateful to be here and I'm excited about our conversation.
Would you like to introduce yourself to our listener first?
Certainly. Well, you've given the official introduction and titles, but I will add just a bit since we're talking about being authentic. I consider myself first as a Christian, a woman of faith that I strive to live my faith in every aspect of my life. I have been involved in association management for a long time. I believe I counted it a little over 3 decades. And like so many of us in this profession, I fell into it. Quite honestly, when I interviewed for my first association job, I didn't even know what an association was. But today I proudly claim the role of association management. And it's an area that I have grown to love in so many ways because it's about people, it's about associations. I am also happily married for over 3 decades to my best friend. What else about me? Oh, I'm an owl collector, and we may talk about that a bit later. But many years ago, I became intimately connected to the power and the presence of owls. And so that is part of my identity now.
I remember the first time I see Cie at the Women's Executive Forum in Chicago this year, and I still remember the owl's earrings that she wears. Why don't we start with that? Your connection with owl and the power and the presence. Can you describe what it is for us?
Yes, I believe it started when I was a junior in college. Somehow I ended up with a very large poster of an owl, and the owl had bright yellow eyes. And my dorm room at that time had a slanted ceiling. So I posted this owl. It was a humongous poster. I put it right over my bed. So I spent a year in my junior year in college, me and that owl. And so many nights as I was going to bed, and I believe at that time I had some connection between owls and wisdom. And over time, I have come to really appreciate the significance of wisdom. I like to think of it as applied knowledge, not only knowing what to do, but how to do it. So that's one connection for me is the owls represent applied knowledge, wisdom. Another aspect of it is consistency. For the most part, I like consistency in my life. I do like to shake it up every now and then, but as the number of owls multiplied in my environment, and they provide not only a visual sense of consistency and stability, but some level of comfort. And so I guess it's like a security blanket. The more that I've studied them, there are other aspects of what they represent that I appreciate, like their regal nature is one part that attracts me. So check out my Owlservations website and learn more about the fascination with owls.
Thank you. I'm hearing a lot of emotional connections when you talk about owls in the story here. Let's start with your story from another perspective. Could you share 3 things that you love about yourself?
I think I can do that and I will do that. I love that as much as humanly possible, I strive to live a life of integrity. And that is doing what I say I'm going to do. And also being the same when it's just me, myself, and I behind closed doors as when I show up anyplace else. That sense of integrity, striving, not hitting perfect all the time, but striving to live a life of integrity. That's one thing that I like about myself. I also like my prioritizing of people, especially now. This world, let's just say, is in an interesting state. And that interesting is a euphemism covering many areas. And so people are really, in many ways, stress more, struggle more, just in challenging times. Yet at the same time, when we look for it, we see evidence of people who are helping each other, who are there supporting each other, who are, again, striving to do the best they can on any given day. So for me, as much as I focus on projects and strive to do the work, I like the fact that I know the highest priority is people. Thirdly, I know what I like about myself, and I'm going to give God credit for this one. 1,000 years ago, somewhere, I became hooked on taking care of my physical self. One of my earliest careers was as a fitness professional. And I no longer practice as a fitness professional, but I still do the best I can to take care of my physical self. And my physical self reciprocates, it takes care of me. And so, as I've had more birthdays, the importance of taking care of my physical self is an asset. And I'm glad that I was introduced to that early on in my adult life, actually as a teenager, and it's something that I've continued.
So let's unpack the last piece about taking care of our physical self. Do you have a routine for this?
Yes and no. So the first is movement, just movement. Prior to becoming an association management professional, before I even knew what associations were, I managed a health club. And so I know some people, just the word exercise is almost a 4-letter word. And so I like to think of it as movement. Our bodies were designed to move. That saying, if you don't use it, you lose it, it certainly applies to our physical well-being. And so one part of my routine is just trying to incorporate movement into my life as much as possible. For example, I am grateful that I can walk to work. And so that's an opportunity for at least a 8 to 10 minute walk, 15 minutes if I'm taking my time. As I've had more birthdays, I am reminded that if I sit too long, my body lets me know, okay, it's time to move. And I understand there's technology that helps us with that. So that's part of my routine, looking for anywhere that I can incorporate more movement. I do have 3 opportunities to go to a gym or a club. In my workplace, there is an exercise area. It's a room, but it's pretty well equipped. And so I can go there free of charge to exercise. Where I live, there is a fitness area, larger than the one at work, but not a full-scale club. But the best part is it's open 24/7, and I am a night owl by nature. And so I love the fact that if I want to go to the gym at 2 o'clock in the morning, I can do that. And then I invest in a full-scale health club membership. The club that I belong to has 7 floors and all types of activities. And I try to get there at least 2 or 3 times a week. And my routine includes both cardio as well as muscle building, strength-based work. Again, with more birthdays, it's important for us to do weight-bearing exercises. Then there's some vanity involved in that too, and I'll stop right there.
I am not attuned to exercise as much. I mean, I try, like you say, we strive to put that into the routine. Sometimes it's too cold outside, it's raining, I'm not up to it. So I find myself negotiating with me, an excuse to not going to the gym. Have you experienced anything like that? And is there any conversations that you can share to help me getting out of that conversation?
So how long is this conversation here? Yes, first I have, and I continue to experience that. And again, I'm going to say as I have more birthdays. I remember when I was a youngin', I was very young in my career, and fitness was full-time. I managed a health club. I taught literally tens of classes a week, and I would have those in my class who would come in and they were traditional professionals who worked in an office, and they would say, well, I just can't make time to go exercise. And I said, how come? I was so naive. But now I understand. And so, yes, I absolutely know the challenge of having a very busy life, whether it's work, family, home, just our other responsibilities. And it's easy to either push down the priority list or push off the priority list going to exercise. So I'll come back to the power of just thinking of how can I incorporate more movement? It's not a replacement for focused exercise, but it's certainly a complement and it's better than nothing. So how can I incorporate movement? Here's one that I do. I started a good number of years ago. I set my timer on my phone for 5 minutes and 33 seconds. And there's a reason for that number, but that's the number I use. You can use whatever number you want, but keep it small enough that it's hard to talk yourself out of it. Because I say to myself, are you worth 5.5 minutes? Now, come on, 5.5 minutes. So I set my timer, and for 5.5 minutes, I move. Now, sometimes it's very focused movement, like I have some handheld weights at home. Sometimes I turn on a YouTube video, and I have a number of them I've saved that I can use. But whatever it is, I am moving for 5 consecutive minutes. That's something that I can incorporate into most days. I don't do it every day, but I try to do it most days in the week. Another way that I talk myself out of not doing some focus exercise is I build it into my schedule. As professionals, many of us, we live by a calendar. And so if I write it on my calendar and then guard it like it's a meeting with the CEO, hey, aren't I as important as the CEO? Wait a minute. So if I had a meeting with the CEO, there would be very few things that would interrupt that. And for me, I have to set the time because usually I struggle to get to the gym, but when I get there, I don't want to leave. My last point is sometimes I have to say to myself, just go, even if you're there for 15 minutes. The win, the achievement is just walking in the door. Some days, that's all it takes. Now, once I get there, usually I'm good, but sometimes I have to psych myself out and say, just go.
I'm loving everything that I've heard so far. So I just want to wrap up this bit by 3 things that you just said. First of all, you gave me a new affirmation today. I am as important as a CEO. I worth those minutes in the gym and just go. And this reminds me, I'm practicing yoga. There is this yoga teacher and she always tells us at the beginning of the class, the most important task of a yoga sessions is to get to the studio and you are here. I'm loving it. She just break it down, make it so easy for me. Let's get to the keyword discussions, and you've sort of alerted to it already. What would you like to unpack with our audience today?
Gratitude.
And why gratitude today?
For me, it's foundational. It is the basis of pretty much everything that I do. Life can be hard now. It is in so many ways. And some days I have to be very intentional and not getting sucked into all the negativity that surrounds us on a regular basis. And so if I operate from a framework of gratitude, it helps make everything else better. Now, some I have to look hard and long for that silver lining of gratitude in the darkest clouds. But if I take the time, if I stop, stand still for a moment and really reflect on the full picture, there's always something to be grateful for.
What I'm hearing is quite abstract. Can you give me an example to bring it to life for us?
Absolutely. Yes, right now, today, I was sharing with you. It was one of those days where the technology gremlins were spending extra time in my computers, plural computers. And I'll have to say that I allowed it to throw me off center. I was becoming frustrated to the point of it bubbling up and out. And I don't like that. Fortunately, we have a wonderful IT team and they came multiple times, but I knew I had some deadlines that I wanted to hit before we came into this conversation. I knew that I just didn't have time to waste dealing with technology. When I recognized that I was off center, that I was allowing these factors that are part of everyday life, but for whatever reason, I was allowing them to disrupt my peace. I stopped. I literally walked out of my office and went to another space because just that step of removing myself is a physical reminder that I can step away from this. I took a moment to breathe. That's so important. Breathe. Just breathe. And I thought about, what am I grateful for right now? What that does is allow my mind to shift away from the negative energy. One, I was grateful that we have such a great IT team that is so responsive that I did not have to go back and forth with them. I didn't have that worry. That they were right on it. I was grateful that this session was set up and I knew I would be talking about gratitude. And then, for me, because I use gratitude list on a regular basis, when I really need a reminder, I get down to the raw, simple things. Like I was grateful that today I had one of my favorite lunches and I had a chance to eat it in between the gremlins and the technology issues. And that brings me a smile because I like to eat, So that's an example for me, how I can use that principle of gratitude, how I can use that skill. Actually, practicing gratitude is a skill, meaning that I can learn how to do it. I can learn how to do it better the more that I use it. And not only then, once I have some degree of competence in it, I can help others learn the skill. So today I had an opportunity to practice that skill, and now I'm sharing it with someone else.
Thank you so much for that. So what I'm hearing is when we get into a frustrated situation, as you share, with the tech doesn't work, then somehow you realize that the situation push you off center and you remind yourself to step away from it, and that gives you a different perspective and change your mindset to shift away from the negative energy. So I just want to unpack that a little bit. Just my example, when the negative energy pour on me, all of a sudden, all I can see in front of me is that huge issue full of negativity. What sort of reminders or what sort of cue should I set up in front of me so that I know that I have a choice to walk away from it?
So I'll share some of what I use. And then I encourage you to find what will work for you because everyone will have different cues. But maybe some that I use will spark an idea for you, or maybe you'll pick them up whole cloth and they'll work for you too. You said something so powerful, and that is choice. Earlier in my career, earlier in my life, when I would get caught up in situations, I did not recognize or fully appreciate that I have a choice in this matter. It is easy in human life, in humanity, especially, I'm going to say right now, when again, there's so much negativity around us, to forget that we have a choice on how we respond. There are times when we don't have a choice on whether we're in a particular situation. Truly, there are some times where we are not able to remove ourselves. If I can, through learning and then practicing, use that power of choice, that's a strong beginning. And so, reminders. First is recognition that something is happening. I don't know about you, but sometimes, especially if I'm trying to work through it, I may not fully acknowledge that I'm off center, that something is not right here. And so For me, it often starts with stop, be still, and know that something's off here and it starts with me. So recognition is the first piece and acknowledging it. Then one of the next steps is that reminder of, okay, what do I have a choice about and what's beyond my choice? Goes back to that very familiar serenity prayer, God, grant me the serenity, that peace to know what I can control, what I cannot control, and to know the difference. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the hardest part, the wisdom to know the difference. And so the reminder when I'm in that cesspool of negativity, if I can pull out enough to stand still, take a quick look around, to take a quick look within, what do I have control over or influence over? What do I not have control or influence over? And then how do I move forward with those things I can influence or control, which usually just means me, because I can't control you. And then that principle of acceptance, those things that I don't have any control over, to get to a degree of acceptance, and remembering that acceptance doesn't mean that I like it all the time. But if there's something truly that I cannot change right now, if I don't accept it, then that's just self-inflicted pain. Because if I can't change it, why am I inflicting that stress on myself, being all upset over something I can't change? Those are some of the steps, part of the skill of getting to that gratitude, because all of these are steps toward gratitude.
Thank you so much. So first we start with the recognitions of what's happening. For me, that is about recognizing some of the physical cue that I might have, like first reaction. Sometimes for me, I find myself all of a sudden feel very hot, like something conflicted, something doesn't settle well internally for me. So that's the cue for me to stop, take a deep breath, and then acknowledging that something's not feeling right here. I really like how you say looking at the choices that I have in front of me and then differentiate between what I can control and what I cannot control. I really like that part. And I also like how you say the stuff that I cannot control, think about them and think about how I can deal with them, as in how do I accept them? And also accept the fact that I don't have to like the thing that I don't have the control over. So that's just pure gold of wisdom there. And then how do we move forward with all of the information that we have? This is really cool. So you mentioned that this is like the first part to get into the gratitude training crash course. What's the follow-up from this?
Okay, so wonderful summary too. Thank you for summarizing those points. One of the next steps, and of course it's contingent on the person and then whatever specifically is happening. But one of the next steps is to feed the gratitude and starve the opposite of gratitude, complaining, looking at the negativity. Feed the positive, starve the negative. Many of us can think of a person, don't call any names, that guaranteed if you reach out to them, and let's say you have a legitimate reason to vent, okay? You just need to get it up off of you. Not only will they listen to your 5 minutes of venting, they will add on 55 more minutes of venting and negativity in their attempts to help you, I'm sure. But by the time you finish the call with them, you feel worse because they have helped you stay in a negative space. All we have to do is turn on the news and we can easily run into a whole lot of things beyond our control that will feed the negativity. Not to say that we shouldn't listen to the news. We do need to stay abreast of things in this world. But for me, I used to be a news junkie. I had to back up because it was disturbing my peace and making it very difficult to have a state of gratitude. Now, on the other side, examples of how I feed the gratitude. One, I have a gratitude journal. I like to journal on a regular basis. And I write those special things and sometimes not so special things that I want to have a record of, that on this day, June 7th, I am grateful that I had this conversation. It was set up because it helped me get past the technology gremlins. So, that'll give me a chuckle later. The gratitude journal is a way that, one, it's a reminder for me to remember that I will get through whatever I'm going through. See, it happened back in 1987, and then it happened again in 1993, and it's going to be okay. And then just reading the gratitude list, reading the gratitude journal brings me joy. So that's one of the ways I feed the gratitude. Opposite of that friend who's going to help me multiply my venting, I have some people in my closest circles who are absolutely gratitude buddies. Not that they are going to sugarcoat situations that need to be addressed. Not that we're going to come together and both stick our head in the sand. But those individuals who will keep it real, but also will help me find that silver lining in those very darkest clouds. So I strongly suggest, if you don't have a couple of buddies like that, try to be one for someone else. And if you are one, you will attract someone that can serve that role for you. And then thirdly, on feeding the gratitude, it's what I take in, even beyond news and television. I strive to read, study music. I love music, for it to be more uplifting, more positive. And that's another way that I feed my gratitude. On that note, playlists. I'm sure many of us have our favorite playlists. I have different playlists for different moods. And one of my playlists is specifically designed for when I need a reminder that I'm good, all is well around me. There are songs there that serve that purpose 100%. And so there are times when I can feel, okay, you need to get back on center, and I hit that playlist. And I didn't mention this, every night I say my prayers. I do top 10 gratitude. It can be something as small as I can walk to work. And that's a gratitude I never want to take for granted.
I'm just loving your analogy throughout the conversation so far. And how you label your trusted friends being the gratitude buddies. I'm sure that we all have people like that in our lives, but by labeling it, now I feel so much more grateful for them being around me and walking through different up and downs moments with me. I think I'll just have to call them after this conversation. Thank you so much for that reminders. I also like how you separate the external factors that impact our perspective on different things at life, because obviously without, again, that awareness and recognition, it will be hard for us to internalizing and understanding what's going on within us. Have you ever had a situation where the negative stories become too unbearable that it's hard to shut it off?
The question is, how many of those stories do I have? So the short answer is yes. Would you like for me to share an example?
Yes, please.
That I can share in public. I'm thinking of a workplace situation. This was many years ago. I was much earlier in my career, and I was operating as a perfectionist, but I didn't know that at that time. I was in a new leadership position early in my career as a leader of any sort. I also was caught up in some people pleasing, even though the person was the CEO of the organization. I had made a mistake. I don't even remember what the mistake was, but somehow it had reached the CEO. And let's just say he didn't have the best people skills. I know that now. But when he communicated to me that he was in some way displeased with whatever mistake I had made, I now know that he did not do it in the most effective professional way. But at the time, I internalized it all. It was all my fault. And it consumed me. And in that moment, I think I had enough presence of mind not to fall apart. But I remember so clearly that evening when I was walking to the train, I could not stop crying. And then I was mad at myself that I was crying about this job situation. Like, shake it off. What's wrong with you? But I am sure in hindsight that that was probably the straw that broke the camel, my back. There had been an accumulation of issues that, again, I didn't have the skills on how to deal with the accumulating issues, so that when that final thing happened that I put so much emphasis on, it broke me. And I remember walking to the train just being totally distraught. Fortunately, when I got home, I had a gratitude buddy, that is my husband, who was able to help me disconnect and let it go, at least for that moment. And I'm grateful. I'm so very grateful for that. But that was a season in my life when it was very, very difficult to shift. But in the spirit of gratitude, it's also one of those stories that in hindsight reminds me of why I need to learn these skills and practice them and share them with others. Because in hindsight, I see how I could have done some things differently, but I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. So I'm grateful that I had that experience because it has informed my journey going forward.
Thank you so much. And I love how you also acknowledge that a lot of the time we don't know what we don't know. And I like how you credit it to the practice of gratitude. And I completely agree with that. I think for me personally, with the practice of gratitude, it helped me to acknowledge everything that we have and everything that comes towards our way. Like in the morning when I wake up, I open my eyes and I'm being grateful that the sun's coming out today. It's going to be a great day out there. Think about yourself today and yourself in that scenario. If you were able to travel back in time and talk to yourself in that situation, what would you tell the younger Cie?
But first, I wouldn't say anything. I would just give her a hug, a silent hug that I would hope would communicate that it's going to be all right. You're not alone. When I was caught up, and I think this is true for many people, when we're going through situations, it's so easy to feel isolated, that no one else has ever gone through anything like this because it looks like they're all doing well, and I'm over here crumbling. So I would give her a hug. And then I would provide that opportunity for healthy venting, like, what happened? How are you doing? And really just listen, because I now know that's an important part of the healing process, is getting it up and out, and in a way that is healthy. Then based on how she shared, I would inquire, asking questions like, did you do the best you could? It was a mistake. Are you able to forgive yourself? And I say, did you do the best you could? Because oftentimes I have a extremely high standard for myself, but I'm judging myself on something, again, I may not have learned how to do. I may not have mastered that skill yet. Today, I know the power of extending grace to myself, not holding myself accountable for something that either I haven't learned yet, or I didn't even know that I need to learn it, let alone learned it, or I haven't mastered it yet. And being human, I am going to always need to learn something. So I would say to her, in a way, hopefully, that she could hear in the midst of her pain, that it's okay, that if you made a mistake, I think they call it human, and you're going to get past this. Now, yes, I'll put a period right there.
Thank you so much for that. So I just want to wrap up this segment very quickly. We talk about how to practice our gratitude muscles, and Cie share a couple of steps, including keeping a gratitude journals, appoint someone as our gratitude buddies, separate the negative factors that are affecting us. And then we also flip the conversations, like how are we able to help others to realize healthy venting and differentiate that with the other negative venting sort of notion as well. Before we move to the last segment of the episode, is there anything else you'd like to share about gratitude?
For some, it's easier to learn and practice gratitude than it is for others. And that's no judgment. We're wired differently. And so each person, if they have any interest in building their gratitude muscles, be okay with where you are with it. I recently saw some research around the science of gratitude, and I sort of chuckled in that science has discovered the power of gratitude. A good book that I read often that was written over 2,000 years ago, it gives clear direction on the value of gratitude. But I'm glad science discovered that there are evidence-based research benefits of actively practicing gratitude. And so for those of us who are sort of more wired to lean that way, go ahead and lean into it. I know others, for what other reason, practicing gratitude may feel phony. It may feel like wearing rose-colored glasses, and that's not realistic to be so happy and grateful all the time. And that's okay. If someone who is not naturally wired to be more leaning into this gratitude idea, but that we've piqued their interest maybe, I would say give yourself time, take baby steps, look for the easy things to be grateful for. You know, oftentimes I remind myself one of the easiest ways to make a gratitude list is to think about what in your life, if it wasn't there, that you would miss. And when you start to think about it that way, the fact that I can get up and dress myself every morning, some people can't do that. They have to depend on someone else to dress them. You know, so if you think about all the parts of your life, that if they weren't there, you would greatly miss them. There's your gratitude list. So wherever you are, give it a try. It is well worth it.
Thank you so much for wrapping it up so eloquently. When I first start this practice of gratitude, I was on the second categories. I'm more structural, very outcome oriented. And I feel that this was not a natural thing for me. I didn't feel that it was phony, but it just didn't sit right. However, I've seen a lot of evidence, a lot of success story out there. So I keep telling myself to trust the process.
Good.
I was grateful that I had a good framework to follow through. I follow through it, and I'm grateful that I'm able to share notes with Cie today. So yeah, if you ever want to get into this process, make sure that you find a good framework and then just trust the process. We're getting to the last segment of the conversations. What's next for you in the coming 12 months?
Only God knows. However, some things that I'm working towards. You said trust the process. So I can participate and plan in the process, but oftentimes the outcome isn't what I plan. So I just have to trust that it is still all good. It will work out for my good. Some things that are on the horizon. In my, what I call my day job, the American College of Surgeons, we are doing some work around our values, the organizational values. And so we're building out a program we started this fiscal year that ends at the end of June. And so we're looking to build on this platform of what we call values to life, bringing our 5 organizational values to life in the workplace to improve the environment for all of our team, all of our colleagues. I'm excited about where that's going to go because, again, going back to the importance of people, the work that we do in any association is critical to our members, to the industry of professions we represent. But it doesn't happen without the people who are positioned to do their best work most of the time. We know work is not going to be perfect, but as much as we collectively can build environments that are psychologically healthy, more conducive to everyone contributing in a meaningful way and being valued, it makes it better for everyone. So we're doing that work here, and I'm excited about what that next phase will involve. In my firm, Owlservations, we're continuing a major research project that will look at how professionals of color have learned to leverage their social identity, their racial identity as an asset in their career, as opposed to just a liability. So much tells us, and it's true, that who we are can work against us. And as society is changing, in some places, a professional's racial identity may become even more of a liability in some places. And so we're doing this research because it is absolutely true that those of us, including you and I, who have any degree of success, have learned how to leverage who we are, all aspects of who I am, to work as an asset in my career. So I'm excited about continuing that research. We started last year, and so we will be going into the next phase of it this year.
I wish you all the best with that research. I will make sure we include the link of the research and the survey in the show notes.
Thank you.
And what prompts you to that big question for this research initially? I think it is a very valid question. It is a very brave question. What gave you the courage to pitch that research question in the first place?
Life, my life, the lived experiences of so many people I interact with, where from the very start of our career and even before our career, our academic journey, in too many ways, we are told explicitly, implicitly, verbal, nonverbal, that who you are against you. And in some ways, that's true. We need to hear that so we can prepare, but that's not the whole story. And so as I worked with more leaders of color, as I dug deeper into the existing research, I saw how evident it was to me that who we are can also be a benefit. But being the research nerd that I am, I said, let me dig a bit further. So my dissertation research was related to this, not exactly the question, but certainly in that ballpark. Now that I'm Dr. Cie, I wanted to build on it in a way that will produce results that can be turned into practical steps, skills building, training, education. So maybe some of my experiences, some of the experiences of others will benefit those who are early in their career, even mid-career, later career. That was the motivation. We have to take responsibility for ourselves, sort of going back to that serenity prayer, to avoid living in victim mentality. We can and we must take accountability for ourselves that, yes, all of these negatives are around us, all of these barriers and obstacles, but we can do something. And so understanding how who I am can work to my benefit helps me to operate in that space where I have some influence or control. Get me excited about it.
I can see the spark in your eyes when you talk about it. Thank you so much. I love the energy here. And I love how we wrap up the interview with the very beginning of your story when you start immediately the conversations that you're very focused on people, you prioritize people, and bring out the goodness in the people and how that align with the organizations that they are working with. Thank you so much for wrapping that up. I have one last question to the episode. And thank you again for sharing your life journey with us so far. If you're looking at your entire life stories from the beginning until today, what is the one thing that has maintained constantly with you during that period?
I'm going to say gratitude. That even through the darkest days, and I've had a few dark days, more than I would like to admit, that having some point, some aspect that I could be grateful for gave me the hope to keep going. Gratitude and hope are closely linked for me. The opposite of hope is hopelessness. And when a person reaches the point of not having any hope that change can happen for the better, when a person reaches the point that they don't see any possibility that it's going to get better, that's when drastic actions, horrific actions can occur. And we all are familiar with the increase in suicide in certain populations. And so the constant has been that gratitude based on my relationship with my God that has allowed me to find some hope and to move on and do what I can and let go of the rest.
Very well said. Thank you so much for that. This is the end of the episode. Thank you again for your time and sharing your story with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me to have this conversation. I applaud your courage in hosting these podcasts and asking the tough questions. And I just pray that someone else would benefit from it. Because my name is Cie Armstead, also known as Dr. Cie, and you're listening to Humans of Authenticity. Thank you.